Still a better exposition dump than anything from Disney these days. We opened this week with Milky Holmes alongside their pet chicken from last week. Yeah, as it turned out, I was wrong. It was perfectly fine. I mean, look, it's right there with them. I mean, give them credit. At least they're not letting that bird go to waste, especially in these times. And, hilariously enough, they failed to notice that their toys were back. Like, Nero not noticing their technopath abilities fixed the radio kinda makes sense, but they also, of course, failed to notice a flying towel brought in by Cheryl's telekinesis. Total Recall is an excellent movie? Yes, I agree. But yeah, with their field gone, they needed more money to cover for food, so the girls decided to all take up part-time jobs. With that, Ellie returned to her JoJo posing, Cordelia of course handed out flowers, and Cheryl worked at a ramen restaurant where apparently cleanliness wasn't a thing, as the floors were greasy from all the lard that steamed up from the soup. Yeah, fun fact, using lard in ramen likely stemmed from Japan's adaptation of Dandan Mian, Tan Men. It was originally introduced to the country by a Szechuanese chef named Ken Min. Why do I bring all this up? Oh, no real reason. I mean, it's not as though pork fat of all things is gonna become integral to this story in the slightest. No, and as for Nero, well, she took on the most important job of essentially investing in early cryptocurrency. Yeah, it's worth mentioning that this is the first episode that a certain meme was born for this character, but more on that later. Anyway, while her job didn't pay her anything yet, Ellie did get an art piece from the instructor as a gift. Obviously, it was supposed to be of her in a very abstract way, but then some dude in a top hat who was passing by took interest in it, claiming that it looked like his first love, which I guess kinda makes sense. I mean, Cubism is a very interpretive art style and, I swear, we don't get good comedy like this anymore. Anyway, the two ended up getting separated when they went to an Egyptian desert in Yokohama and got separated by a collapsing ruin. Yeah, if you ever thought getting sent to the Shadow Realm was nonsensical, well, it is, but still, the story is a good comparator. Thus, kind of rightfully, Milky Holmes wanted to ditch this old geezer once his story started to run long, but then he said the three magical words, I got money. And as for the exact amount he was offering for the painting... Well, with that kind of money, you could actually afford a Nintendo Switch 2 with more than 2 games. Speaking of which, you just gotta love the Mario 1-up sound effects that Nero made every time she hit the tree and lit up some lights to write out at least part of the amount they were getting from this dude. Again, you gotta appreciate how creative they are with some of these gags. Anyway, Nero, of course, tried to negotiate a little more out of this poor grieving dude, including having him get them a ton of sushi. And yeah, stuff like this was why Nero ended up becoming a rather divisive character for this series, to the point that she was even called straight up trash by the fans of the show. To which I say, yeah, I kind of agree, but that's also kind of why I like her. I mean, I think thanks to shows like Konosuba, myself and others have developed a little bit of a taste for scummy con artist characters who, yeah, if we ever met them in real life, we might want to give them a good smack, but as leads in comedies like this, they do tend to be some of the funniest guys through some of their over-the-top antics and boisterous personalities. Granted, they're not just total assholes, and do know when to let up, which, as we'll see, Nero will do so too by the end of this, so there's at least a reason for us to get attached to these characters beyond just their trashiness. In that sense, you could say that Nero was a little ahead of her time, and as a result, we couldn't fully process this sort of character. I mean, at least not in the magical girl genre, as Hime would still be a few years away. Practically cut from the same cloth. Anyway, since things can never just be that easy, a gust of wind blew the picture out of Nero's hand, forcing them to give chase. It led them to outside of the park, where fortunately, they managed to hitch a ride from some stereotypical American politician in a big truck. There's an obvious joke I could do here, but I just can't quite put my finger on it. The truck's brakes were shot, but Nero managed to guide it with her toys. This led to a pretty awesome chase scene of them pursuing the stupid drawing, while avoiding running over the cast of Sazai-san and Hayao Miyazaki. Yeah, the cast of the longest running anime in Japan and the grumpy old granddad of anime just appeared out of nowhere. I mean, what else kind of random references can we just throw in here? Well, I'm clearly too sober for this review. And to be fair, after Fuji TV's recent controversies, it actually might be a good time as any just to end this show. And hilariously enough, throughout all of this, Milky Holmes still didn't notice that their toys had returned, and Ellie tried to tell them, but just couldn't spit it out. Tokonatsu's redemption arc was way too rushed. Yes, again, I agree. Eventually, the picture was stopped, thanks to being pinned down by a beached whale. Yeah, this old man's face sums things up pretty perfectly. They of course tried to move the giant sea mammal without the help of Peter Griffin, but of course, Ellie managed to use her strength toys to pull a Hancock.
I don't even remember that.
That's probably your excuse for everything these days, isn't it, Willy boy? Though, and also, the three cards tried to challenge them again, having escaped from jail at the beginning of the episode. Well, better not next time, guys. With that, Milky Holmes were rewarded with their mountain of sushi, and Drill got his picture of his girlfriend, only to immediately not needed, as the whale came back with her now a little thicker and JoJo posing. Yeah, it's the baby whale that you rescued from the Egyptian desert in the middle of the Japanese city. I'm starting to think that the show doesn't understand geography all that well. Yeah, it's worth mentioning that these characters were named Higata Christie and Arthur Conan Drill. Yeah, you can probably guess that the latter was based on Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes, while Higata was based on Agatha Christie, the author of the Hercule Poirot books. Thus, rather appropriately, Ellie was the one to convince Daryl to set things right by paying the sushi guy with the check from Drill, as he was clearly busy with his girlfriend. The sushi chef himself, as told by Cordelia's little exposition dub, needed exactly 9,990,000 yen to pay his $6 surgery bills. Of course, Daryl tried to ask for some change, but they probably wouldn't get any when you factor in taxes and tip, which would probably put them over 10 million, but don't tell them that and just let Daryl have her one good moment of being a decent human. Meanwhile, after doing an Ava reference, the three cards were recaptured and sent to the slammer next to a bunch of pirate-themed crooks, including Jack Sparrow, the pop-up pirate guy, and the bootleg Kokai Red. Also, I do see Luffy's hat, but I like to more imagine that's Jai Somali being forced to properly serve his time in Japan. However, with all those good captures, Arinet got a call from the mayor that she later relayed to Milky Holmes. As it turned out, detectives had been deemed obsolete in their city, so the Holmes Academy's funding was likely going to be cut off and they'd have to close down. Moreover, there were already plans to tear down the school and use it as the grounds for, ironically enough, the detective fair they mentioned in the previous episode. The shock of this deactivated Milky Holmes' toys again because these powers are more unstable than your average social influencer. Regardless, the episode ended with them finally remembering that they had superpowers and that they could try to use them to save their school. This is a fun little follow-up to the first episode, and in some ways even better, if only because Milky Holmes just did a little more. It's actually both hilarious and yet kind of awesome how effective they were with their toys when they didn't even realize they had them. The obvious MVP of this one was Nero, with her taking control of the truck with that very fun little chase scene. Like, I do get that people might have found this character's greediness to be a little much back in the day, but personally, I just find her incredibly entertaining through her trashiness. And again, it's not as though she's a total jerk-ass, as she did at least pay the sushi guy at the end. Speaking of which, just this whole scenario of stand-ins for two very famous mystery authors getting separated in an Egyptian desert in the middle of frickin' Japan is the kind of insane brain rot that I love to see in a show like this. And overall, this is just a hilarious second episode with an actually pretty exciting little chase scene. They say that most art is up for interpretation, and for me, I just like to look at trash like Nero sometimes. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoy some good art, well, you could certainly do worse than the stuff on this channel. I mean, if you at least have a taste for magical girls and tokusatsu, we have plenty of it here, and more to come in the near future. So, look forward to whatever comes next. Until then, though, for now, my friends, and what's this? Ugh, looks hideous and drawn by, like, maybe a drunk Da Vinci or something. And post that to Makari.